film we're going to be talking about is Pedro Almodovar's Pain and Glory. That also premiered at Cannes this year, and I think Antonio Banderas won the award for Best Actor, correct? Yeah. So it's, Jim, why don't you tell us a little bit about the film?
Okay, so as you said, Pedro Almodovar, and it's a fairly autobiographical thing. It's Antonio Banderas is playing a Spanish film director, Salvador Mayo, who is very obviously a version of Almodóvar, even up to the point where if you look at the hairstyles that Antonio Banderas has given, it's that kind of like shock of, standing up hair that Almodóvar is quite famous for. And basically, we pick up with this guy after he's not been making a film for a while. He's suffering from various physical and mental ailments, and he's kind of a bit of a shadow of his former self, really. And we get this montage early on of that. So we're following him in the present day. We get flashbacks to his childhood with his mother, played by Penelope Cruz. And it's really just following him reconnecting with various different things. And the instigating incident is a local cinema is doing a retrospective of one of his most famous films, which was made 32 years ago. And they want him and the actor that he fell out with and rather infamously had a falling out with on the set and afterwards. And he hasn't spoken to him since the premiere of that film. It's basically, that's the instigating incident, and that causes the film to follow him reminiscing on his life, reconnecting with people from different segments of it, also looking back on his art and what is sparking life and creativity in him now. And basically we are with him for the whole film, and we follow him through those different kind of events as across about a week or so, but there are frequent flashbacks to different parts of his life.
Yeah. And what did you think of it?
I thought it was absolutely wonderful. Mm. I really liked it. Now, I've generally liked Pedro Almodovar's films. Ironically, I'm not terribly familiar with his stuff from pre-1990s, which obviously plays into this. So the film, the fictional film that Salvador Mayo directed that instigates this is, I think, was it Sabor? Was it called? So I'm not really sure what film, if any, that would correspond to in Almodóvar's filmography, but it was really wonderful, and it contains all the sort of things that you would expect from Almodóvar. Like there's fantastic use of colour, like there's red, like everywhere in here, and this extremely kind of like very precise set decoration and all the rest of it. I think what the difference here is, now I haven't seen Julieta. I have been told a lot of people think it's very similar in the way it approaches its characters and story to that film, which I've not actually seen, but it's a very personal film. It's very character driven, and I think Antonio Banderas is wonderful in this. I really am not surprised he's got a lot of plaudits for it. I really actually think it might be one of the best performances from him I've seen, to be honest.
Yeah, it was incredible. And we were talking about certain moments in the film. Again, another film about filmmaking and a film director kind of in the later part of his career, or a filmmaker of some sort. My favorite part was the moment where there's the Q&A scene and they didn't arrive because of what they were doing. I'm trying not to spoilers anymore, but they were broadcast in there. It was quite, for someone who loves Q&As so much, it was such a great scene, and I completely agree with you. I mean, I was a big Pedro Almodovar fan when I was younger, and so and this just reminded me of why I love his work so much. It's so stunning, and the acting is such amazing. It's really empathetic, and you could really dislike this guy, but I feel like there were so many really empathetic scenes, when he meets his former lover again, and there's so many great moments in this film.
Incidentally, when he meets his former lover again, I've forgotten the name of the actor who plays him, unfortunately, but I think they would win the award for best silver fox couple. I mean, an impossibly good looking pair of men, quite frankly.
And making out, it was just like, wow.
Yeah, that was one good looking couple, but the film overall is really great. And I think what's quite interesting about it is it's not particularly telling a story, I don't think. I mean, obviously, it's rooted in the story of Salvador Mayo, or Almodóvar, by a different name. It's rooted in the story of his life, but it's painted in little vignettes. It's almost like you've got different segments, and they're like very, you've interspersed with almost like short films covering his childhood, even, or something like that. But by the end of it, you have a really beautiful picture of this central character, played fantastically by Antonio Banderas. And I think all the supporting characters around about him, like his personal assistant come agent, his mother, both the young version of his mother played by Penelope Cruz, and the later version, sort of like just before she died. I mean, it's not really given. His mother dies at some point, and it's all these things where it's painted as if he's coming to terms with them, right? He's coming to terms with his own personal history, his mother's death, his physical ailments, but it comes out that way to begin with, but it's not actually that. It's more about reconnecting, so he reconnects with his former lover. He gets a little bit of artistic inspiration again. Now, the catalyst for this is, I think we'll go with it, right, because it happens quite early on. Basically, like, heroin plays a role in this, right, and the journey he goes on with that and how it affects him is a very interesting one, because you're used to watching films where like drugs are kind of like the start of a spiral,
Right.
But the thing, what happens when you've got this person who's got the weight of everything that's happened to them before and the state they're in now? What happens then when they already feel like they're at rock bottom? And it was an interesting and a different dynamic for that sort of plot than I've seen before.
Right. The one thing I have to say, and just my really picky thing, is that when they're showing sort of his ailments and his heart, like they sort of turn into some weird animation, and it felt like a corporate video or something like that to me. I don't know why, but it just, you have all these really beautifully set scenes, and then then it's kind of goes into that bit, and it just felt like it pulled me out a little bit. But that's also probably because I've done a lot of corporate videos in my life or something.
I kind of agree with you on that bit, though. Like, fortunately, it's quite short, and so but it did feel well, because the thing is, it starts off the intro, like the actual intro credits are absolutely beautiful,
stunning. Yeah,
it's kind of like this effect of kind of like marbled paper that's moving,
right,
and like it's really really beautifully done. And then in very quick order, you got something where, okay, it's not completely lacking in artistic, because it's Pedro Almodovar that's done it, right? There's lots of interesting stuff going on in it. But it is a little bit like Pedro Almodovar directed a Nurofen commercial for a really short period for some reason. So that bit, I agree, didn't quite work. Fortunately, it moves on from it, and then I think what's strange about it actually is like that kind of visual aesthetic is never revisited for anything else in the film. It would be one thing if he came back to it for other stuff.
Well, and I'm glad he didn't.
Yeah, but he doesn't. It's a very standalone part. But that happened. It happens early, and it moves on from it. From then on, it's fantastically realized, impeccable, and I really loved it. I really thought it was great.
Yeah, I think we're both in agreement, and I think we're all unanimously agreeing to that you guys should go see it. Definitely.
Yeah.